Chris Borland sat down and wrote a check for $463,000 to the San Francisco 49ers. He was paying them for the right to never play football again. Just months earlier, he was the most dominant rookie linebacker in the league, leading the team in tackles and looking like the face of their defense for the next decade. Then he did the math on what each hit cost his brain and realized the NFL was a bad investment. One collision that he was afraid to report to his coaches in training camp just 8 months prior changed everything. Quick favor, I'm on a mission to hit 1,000 subscribers before the NFL season kicks off. If you're enjoying this so far, hit that subscribe button and be part of the team before game day. At 5'11", he was undersized for a linebacker. Scouts dismissed him as too slow. But in Wisconsin, he played with reckless abandon, launching himself at ball carriers with a violence that made him a fan favorite. He led the Big Ten in tackles and became an All-American, but on draft day in 2014, he still fell to the third round. The 49ers took him as insurance. Then Week 7 happened. Patrick Willis, the face of the franchise and one of the greatest linebackers in NFL history, went down with a toe injury that would eventually end his career. Borland stepped in and immediately became the most productive linebacker in football. His first start against the Broncos, 8 tackles and a sack. 2 weeks later, he recorded 18 tackles against the Rams, the most by any player that season. The week after that, 17 tackles against the Saints. He was dominant. The same aggressive play that made him a sensation was destroying his brain with every snap. Borland knew it. During training camp, he'd taken a hit that left him dazed. What players call getting your bell rung. He didn't report it because he was a third-round pick fighting for a roster spot. But that moment triggered a question he couldn't shake. How many times am I going to do this? And what are the real consequences? By December, he wasn't just a rookie sensation. Analysts were drawing comparisons to Patrick Willis and talking about him in the same breath as Luke Kuechly. The 49ers and their fans were planning a decade of Super Bowl runs. Borland was planning for a future where he could still remember his children's names. The highlight reels played on loop. Borland diving over the pile, arriving at the ball carrier before blockers could even react. Borland flying sideline to sideline, his smaller frame somehow covering more ground than players 6 inches taller. Every tackle was a small explosion. Every collision was a moment of violent physics where his brain slammed against the inside of his skull. He finished the season with 107 tackles, 2 interceptions, and 1 sack in just 14 games. 8 of those games were starts. He was 24 years old and already one of the best linebackers in the league. If you're the kind of fan who wants to understand the NFL beyond the Sunday box score, you're in the right place. Hit subscribe to join the community. The media praised his instincts and toughness. Borland spent his nights reading everything he could find on CTE. The statistics were brutal. Studies of donated brains showed CTE in 50 to 97% of former NFL players examined. Studies of donated brains showed CTE in 50 to 97% of former NFL players examined, though this sample may overrepresent symptomatic players who were more likely to donate. Boston University researchers found the disease in 87 out of 91 deceased NFL players they examined. CTE causes depression and memory loss. It brings mood swings and early onset dementia. The terrifying part? It can only be diagnosed after death, through autopsy. Borland learned that brain damage doesn't come from one catastrophic hit. It accumulates like an overuse injury, and even subclinical hits don't cause obvious symptoms show up on brain scans as damage. He'd already sustained 2 diagnosed concussions before the NFL, one playing soccer in 8th grade, another in high school football. He consulted with leading CTE researchers at BU, including Dr. Robert Stern, a neurologist who had examined hundreds of former players' brains. Stern's warning was direct. Borland could already have brain damage that might show up later, and it would only get worse with 1,000 or 1,500 hits every fall for the next decade. The NFL's official position was that the game had never been safer with new rules and equipment. The math didn't lie. Every season meant thousands more impacts, and researchers couldn't tell him how many hits would push him past the point of no return. Harvard neurologist Dr. Marie Pasinski told him something that changed everything. Even with 1 mild traumatic brain injury, we can now see changes to the brain on MRI. The damage wasn't theoretical. It wasn't something that might happen in 20 years. It was happening now, during games and practices, in collisions that didn't even register as a hit in the box score. Nobody could predict who would develop severe CTE or why some players escaped it. The disease didn't discriminate. Stars suffered the same fate as backups, and a clean concussion history offered no protection. Junior Seau played 20 seasons and shot himself in the chest so his brain could be studied. Dave Duerson did the same thing. Mike Webster, the Hall of Fame center for the Steelers, died homeless and demented at 50. All 3 were diagnosed with CTE after death. Borland started doing the math. He estimated he'd taken around 30 diagnosed or suspected concussions from high school through his rookie year. Those were just the ones he remembered or reported. The subclinical hits numbered in the thousands. The routine collisions that left him slightly dazed or feeling off. Dr. Pazinski described CTE as an overuse syndrome for the brain. It wasn't about the one big hit that knocked you out. It was about how damage accumulated over time, degrading the brain in ways you couldn't feel until it was too late. He read League of Denial, the book that exposed how the NFL had spent decades denying the link between football and brain damage. He hid it inside the cover of another book while reading in the locker room, concealing what he was studying from teammates and coaches. He learned about the league's own research committee, which had published papers claiming returning to play after a concussion was safe. He learned that the NFL had tried to discredit independent researchers and suppress findings that contradicted the league's narrative. The more he read, the clearer it became the NFL had always known. In February 2015, 3 months after his rookie season ended, Borland called Dr. Stern again to ask the question that had been keeping him up at night. If I keep playing, what are my chances? Stern told him this: every year of playing tackle football increases your risk of developing CTE by 30%. Borland had already played a decade, absorbing thousands of impacts. He thought about his future, the one where he could be present with his kids and remember who they were, the one where he didn't end up like Webster or Sayu. The decision was clear. On March 16, 2015, Borland released a statement to ESPN announcing his retirement at age 24. He cited concerns about the long-term effects of head trauma and said the risk wasn't worth the reward. The NFL world reacted with shock. Stars don't walk away from millions in their prime. 49ers fans felt betrayed. Some called him soft. Others accused him of quitting on the team. Message boards exploded with anger. Talk radio hosts questioned his manhood. The narrative was simple. He couldn't handle it. Borland's retirement was different from past early exits. He could still play at an elite level, and he had no other career waiting. He was the first young star to publicly say, "This game will destroy my brain, and I'm willing to walk away." The league issued carefully worded statements emphasizing safety improvements and player choice. They couldn't afford to engage with the substance of his concerns. The 49ers asked him to return 3/4 of his signing bonus, about $463,000. He paid it without complaint. He'd already made peace with walking away from money. Other players started asking the same questions Borland had asked, and the NFL knew that was dangerous. If players started doing the math on brain damage the way Borland did, the entire sport was at risk. ESPN called him the most dangerous man in football because of his aggressive style of play. The league saw a different kind of danger, a star player publicly acknowledging the link between football and brain damage. In the years since, Borland has stayed almost entirely out of the NFL spotlight. He rejected the usual post-NFL career options. Instead, he dedicated himself to mental health advocacy, working with veterans and developing mindfulness programs. He became a consultant with the Center for Healthy Minds and taught emotional intelligence programs. When asked about his decision years later, he said he had no regrets. He chose his future over the NFL's present. The 49ers defense struggled after losing both Willis and Borland in the same offseason. The linebacker position that had been the team's identity for nearly a decade suddenly became a weakness. The team declined from 8-8 in 2014 to 5-11 in 2015 as they entered a rebuilding phase. Fans who had cursed Borland's name started to wonder if he'd seen something they hadn't. Borland's legacy lives in the conversation he forced the NFL to have. He proved that the dream of playing professional football comes with a cost that doesn't show up on a contract. He showed that walking away isn't weakness, it's survival. Today, he's a ghost to the NFL, a reminder of the truth the league doesn't want fans to think too hard about. The truth that the repeated violence of the game is slowly destroying the people who play it. Chris Borland vanished because he could count. He could calculate the cumulative damage each collision caused. The NFL lost a star. Borland kept his mind. Subscribe to Extra Point Explanation and like and hype this video for more of the content you love.